Welcome to the podcast. Today I got a special show. I'm not going to really talk about dog training today. I'm going to talk about something a little bit more deeply personal. And Janet's standing behind the camera. She has no idea what I'm going to talk about. It's going to surprise her. And the topic is one I've talked about before. I'm not here to be your guru, by the way. I'm not here to motivate you or inspire you or tell you to be a great person. It's all BS, right? What I'm here to tell you is to choose your words carefully. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. Choosing your words, whether you're training your dog, the words you say, the words you manifest, the words you put out, the energy you put out there, makes a huge difference. And it's going to relate to a story that I'm going to tell you in a minute, and it's going to make a lot of sense to you. But before I do that, I want to tell you this podcast is brought to you ad-free by Visionary Pet Food. My friends at Visionary Pet Food have an amazing product that is a ketogenic diet for dogs. As those of you who know me know, I love my dogs more than anything. And when I choose food for my dogs, I do it very carefully. I have chosen to feed my dogs a ketogenic diet because I think it's the most healthy, best thing I can do for my dogs. It is a decision I made about 6 months ago, and I'm very, very happy I did. So my friends at Visionary Pet Food have a product. This is a freeze-dried raw. This is actually a kibble that's raw. These foods are very low carbohydrate, no sugars, and they are ketogenic. They're high in fat, high in protein. They also make a frozen patty that is fantastic. Maya just finished hers. She loves it. So anyway, thanks to my friends at at Visionary Pet Food for their ketogenic meals for dogs. They're amazing. I love them, and I highly, highly recommend you try it. And use my code, Cabral20. I'll put the link down below, and you'll save 20% off your first order. So here we are. We're talking about choosing your words. First, I'm going to tell you a little experience that happened to me yesterday, and it's going to surprise Janet, who's standing behind the camera. First of all, you see Dwayne and Mater right there behind me. You got Goofy over here. Maya's upstairs. Boz is upstairs. So yesterday, we hired a painter to come to the house. And this is something to think about. And Boz was outside in his crate. And it's going to bring tears to my eyes when I tell you this. And the guy came. He's a nice guy. I've seen the guy 5, 6, 7, 8 times. He's done some work for us before. And he looked at Boz outside, and Boz is 18 years old. Boz is an amazing dog. Boz is basically one of the closest things to me. Besides Janet, my mom, and Goofy, I mean, Boz is my heart and soul. And he said, "Is that dog a rescue?" And I said, "No, he's our dog. He's 18 years old." He said, "Oh, he looks miserable." And I thought, what a shitty thing to say, right? What a horrible thing to say. And I said, "No, he's 18 years old." He goes, "He looks miserable. He's just he doesn't look happy." So those words, just those words uttering off of his lips, changed my opinion of this person, right? It just changed the way I looked at the guy. It made me feel like he was callous. Before, I thought he was a cool guy. I thought he was stupid because of words he chose, right? So then later I said, "No, he's our dog. We love him. He's 18 years old." He said, "Oh yeah, okay, da, da." And he kind of skirted around the issue. But what you want to think about is the words you choose when you first do anything. I'm going to relate it to dog training. This podcast is not really about dog training, but it's about life. And life is about important things. And important things relate back to how you handle your dogs, how you handle the one you love, how you handle your interactions with people. And I think right now everybody's so angry, right, about politics. They're angry about the virus. They're angry about so many things. And this anger is really a terrible thing because it's making things worse, right? Nothing is getting better. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. I don't care. But I'll tell you, on both sides, there's a lot of anger. And in anger, we say hostile things. So there's this book I read, 20 years ago, by a person called the Hafetz Haim. And he is a Jewish sage who was a rabbi, and he had this book called A Lesson a Day, and I read it. And his whole thing, whether you're Jewish or not, stay with me on this. His whole thing was what was called Lashon Hara, which is called evil speech. And evil speech, they say, kills 3 people. 1, the person speaking it. 2, the person you're speaking to who's listening to you. And 3, the person you're speaking about. So saying mean things, even if they're true, is hurtful, it's detrimental, and it's a terrible sin. Not here to lecture you on religion. I don't give a damn about religion. I don't care what religion you are. I care that you're a good person, right? But when you say things that you don't think about, and you say them in the moment, you can never take it back, right? So this guy can never take back the fact that he said something to me that hurt me, that he didn't even know hurt me, right? It hurt me, it cut me to the core, right? On one side, I wanted to get up and punch him in the face. On another side, I wanted to cry. And that's when you know something really cuts you, right? When it inflicts that kind of damage. So I didn't tell him anything. I didn't tell him how hurtful it was. I didn't tell him that because I don't think he would have gotten it. So part of this podcast is a cathartic experience for me to kind of get it out of my system. But it's also a huge lesson for us to learn how to be a better person. And when we're a better person, we're a better partner to our loved ones. We're a better son. We're a better parent. We're a better dog owner. We're a better dog trainer. I'm going to relate it back to dog training in just a second. But first of all, I used to say this when I was teaching karate. I said the most powerful muscle we have is our tongue. And the reason we know that's true is because it's guarded by two gates, the teeth and the lips. So there's two gates that protect the tongue from doing something wrong. Your hands have no gates, your feet have no gates. Nothing has as many gates as the muscle of the tongue. Because when the tongue speaks evil, it can start wars, it can kill people, it can destroy marriages, friendships, businesses, and everything. So when you choose your words, it's really important. So when somebody says, like, I'll give you a great example. When I worked with the shelters, if I said, that dog is dangerous, we should put it down, that was the death sentence for that dog, right? And it's a thing I never took lightly. I never just said it, but I'm going to tell you why I would say it. Because if I didn't say it, if I chose to be altruistic and say, oh, I'm going to protect this dog's life, I might in fact be taking another dog's life, right? Relating it back to Boz. Boz was attacked very violently before I came back into Janet's life by a dog who had previously attacked other dogs and who had subsequently attacked other dogs. So the person before could have spoken up and used the power of words to protect Boz, and in fact protected more and more dogs afterwards. Janet did speak up. Janet did report it to animal control. I just smashed my chin in the microphone. But nobody took those words, took the power of those words and did anything powerful with them. Instead, they chose to ignore those words. And by ignoring those words, by not using the words, the power in those words, other dogs suffered, right? Other hearts were broken. Other bodies were severed. So when I make that decision and I say, that dog is dangerous, I'm coming from an expert opinion. It's not that I want to see any dog die, but I want to see the dog live that deserves to live, right? If I know someone is capable of murder, if someone's on their way down to murder someone, I'm going to do my best to stop that person, right? Even if I have to kill the person in the line of preventing another murder, it's better that a person who is thinking about murdering should die than a person who is innocent. So there's an old Zen parable, and there was this really angry, violent man, and he went to the master and he said, what should I do? And the master said, go give out water at the town square. And the guy said, that's stupid. Why should I do that? And the master said, just do it. And so the guy went down and he was giving out water in the town square. And a guy came up and gave him a hassle. And instead of giving him water, this guy killed this man. And later people went to the master and said, why did you put that guy in that position there where he ended up killing the person? And the master said, well, what you don't know is the person he killed had the intention of murdering an entire family. So in choosing and making a decision wisely, you can often save a life, you can do better. And it's such a simple thing to do, right? Deciding to share a smile with someone who doesn't agree with you, or saying less as opposed to saying more. Those are important decisions we make. Let's relate it back to dog training. Let's think about how we interact with our dogs. Our dogs upset us. What do? We yell at them, right? By yelling at a dog, you're not solving the problem, right? If your dog is excited or frustrated or in drive and you yell at the dog, you're not calming the dog down in any way, right? You're not calming the dog down even in the slightest amount. You're not changing the dog's behavior into a better way. You're actually putting the dog into more excitement. So if you have a dog, for example, that is aggressive or reactive to another dog and you yell at the dog, that yelling more than likely will put the dog further into drive. If you have a dog that's fearful and doing something stupid out of fear and you yell at the dog, you're putting the dog further regressing into that fearful state. So a kind word, a command, a reassuring word can be better. Now remember, I always tell you guys, if someone has a dog and the dog is doing something wrong or the dog is fearful and you say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, those words are the wrong words to choose because those words keep the dog in the place. So we choose our words carefully, right? In training, we use a marker word for a release, right? We use a bridge word for continuation of a behavior, and we use a corrective word to stop a behavior. So the word is sit, and the dog doesn't sit. Then we say, nope, we stop the behavior. Good when he's sitting, good sit, good sit, good sit, and yes to release the dog. So why this is so critical is because how we choose these words, how we choose to communicate, because we as humans communicate verbally. Dogs don't communicate verbally. They will do some communication, but it's not their choice of communication. Their choice of communication always is going to be body language, right? Spatial pressure, energy. That's how dogs communicate. So that's very, very different from the way we communicate. In other words, if Dwayne is laying on the bed there and Goofy wants to lay on the bed, he's not going to bark at him, woof, 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 and try to get him to move. He's going to walk over, he's going to stand in a manner that's going to communicate to Dwayne, more than likely intimidate him because he's more alpha, and Dwayne will move. Now, if he doesn't, then there may be more physical pressure that'll come on. That is so critical that you understand this when you communicate with a dog, that it'll make the difference of day and night. How we communicate with our dogs, how to verbally say to the dog what we want, utilizing at the same time spatial pressure, physical presence, is a game changer in communication, right? In the way we communicate with the dogs. We can't get the dog to communicate with us the way we communicate with one another, because a dog is a lower animal, right? It's not as intelligent, it's not as evolved. And if we want to really respect that about the dog, then we want to value that. We want to cherish that. We want to embrace that and really make sure that we understand how to best give the dog the skill to learn what we want him to learn. We do spatial pressure, we lure and shape. We lure and shape. We do all these things because we want the dog to learn what we're going to teach him, right? If we just stand in front of the dog and say, sit, 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 the dog doesn't know what we're saying, the dog is less likely to be able to do it. So instead, we lure the dog, right? We shape the behavior through luring, then we tag a word onto it, and that word will be the command, and that command will then give us the ability to reward, release, and reward the dog. We want the dog to learn through communication, right? We don't want to force the dog. We want to, again, luring and shaping with a treat or with body language or spatial pressure will give the dog the signal of what we want. We tie a word to it, so therefore we brought the dog over to our way of communicating, and thereby we solve the problem, right? We've taught a dog to do something we want them to do. This is verbal communication. This is how we teach a dog to work in our language, right? So that we know if the dog is across the way and we tell the dog, sit, down, come, stay, whatever, that the dog will listen to that, right? The dog will listen to what we've said verbally because we've taught it, lured it, shaped it, and everything through spatial and physical pressure. It's different. When we're humans, when two humans are working with each other, I can sit here and through the magic of the internet and video cameras, I can communicate to you exactly what I want to say. It's a really easy way of communicating. I can write it down, I can speak it out. But with dogs, they must physically either feel it, right, that it's lured or it's shaped, or they must physically experience it through an energy. And once they do, then again, you can tag a word to it, a mark to it, and then the dog will do exactly that. So this is a really important part of training dogs because it gives us the ability to cross-species communicate. Take one more second to tell you, since this is a complete podcast free of commercials because of our friends at Visionary Pet Foods. I'm going to show you one more time their amazing line of products. This is their freeze-dried raw. Amazing. I use these for treats all the time. The beef formula, amazing. Amazing, ketogenic, very, very low carbohydrates, high in protein, high in fat. Goofy's already standing here. Their kibble, which is actually a ketogenic kibble, delicious food. The dogs love it. And my favorite is obviously the freeze-dried. It's a little bit more expensive, but gives your dog an amazing experience. Ketogenic, super high protein, high fat, low carbohydrates, no sugar. All great ingredients. You're going to love it. Your dog's going to love you for it. Check out my page on my site, robertcabral.com, and you get a 20% coupon when you use my code to get your dog started on a ketogenic diet. So, and again, if you like the show with no interruptions, no advertising, support our sponsor, Visionary Pet Food. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up here on this thought of speaking, right? Of how we speak, the words we choose. Whatever we say to people, like if somebody has a dog and the dog is obviously not well behaved, right? I don't want to insult the person. For example, today Janet and I were walking our dogs and this woman was walking a golden retriever across the street. And every time I see this dog, every single time this dog goes off on Dwayne, on Goofy, on Maya, and then, Maya will chime in, Goofy will kind of chill out. But then I have to correct my dogs. And every single time, she has an excuse. Every time she tells me, he doesn't normally do that. But he does it every single time when he sees me and my dogs. So saying he doesn't usually do it is kind of not an accurate statement. She's trying to find her way out. She's trying to be nice. So I said to her, well, every time he sees my dogs, he does it. So then I would take away the usually, right? You need to solve that problem. But I don't want to insult her. I don't want to say your dog is stupid, you're this, your dog is that, because it's just a hurtful word. It's a word that doesn't need to be said. We need to kind of curb the crappy things we say about people, the crappy things we say to people, the crappy things we say about people and dogs. And, I was thinking about this not too long ago. Why do we love dogs so much? Why? Why do we love dogs? Like I look at the love that Janet has for Jimmy. I look at the love that I have for Goofy and Maya, and Janet has for Bosman and Dwayne, and we have for all our dogs. And the love is so unique. And I realized something. Before I even started to do this podcast, I realized that dogs are the only companions that we really have that don't talk back to us. Right? They're just there. They're sponges. They're these like receptors of love, but they never talk back to us. They never even initiate a conversation with us. And imagine if you had your husband or wife and they never initiated a conversation with you, how much could you love that person? Right? How much could you love a person that never initiates a conversation? But on the other side, the person is a complete receptor for your emotions, for your love. When you give them love, they accept the love. When you need love, they give you love without ever saying a word. And if you can't tell me that dogs have this most amazing, magical power to communicate through energy, then you're just missing the ball on dogs, right? You just don't get dogs. Because when I work at the shelter and I see 50, 60, 70 or more dogs in one day, I can tell you that almost every single one of those dogs has a way of communicating with me, of interacting with me that's completely nonverbal. And that's an amazing thing that a lot of people don't get, right? People who don't get dogs don't get nonverbal communication. They don't get energy. They don't get vibes or anything like that. Maybe they're just not capable of it, maybe because they haven't opened themselves up far enough to really experience that. And it's kind of sad. You know, in a way, it's kind of sad because they don't get that degree of love that we get because we love dogs, right? Because we've opened ourselves up to the dogs. And we decide to communicate with the dogs in a way that gives us a different relationship to them. It gives us the ability to form a bond that's cross-species. And if you look, it's the only cross-species relationship that has lasted that many thousands and thousands of years with a domesticated animal. It's not the same with a tortoise or a hamster or a bird or a pig or something like that. People will tell you it is. People will say, oh, I love my pig like you love your dog. And you don't know how much I love my dog, right? It's just not possible. I understand people love animals and they rescue cows and they rescue, rats and all these things. And I think it's a very noble thing. I'm not criticizing anybody for it. Please understand there is no criticism here. But the relationship it's kind of like the relationship between a child and its parent, especially a mother. Right? That relationship is so strong that it can't be matched in anything. It can't. So the relationship that you form with a dog is probably the closest thing if you'll open yourself up to it, right? The relationship I had with my dog Silly, the relationship I have with Goofy and Maya and Boz and Jimmy and Dwayne, it's so real, it's so deep, it's so powerful that you can't really communicate it in any other way, right? There's nothing that will match to it. I've talked about this with my friends who are really tight with their dogs. They get it. I've talked about this with viewers, with people who have watched my podcast. I've talked about this with people who I've met at the shelter. With anybody who gets it, gets it. And people who don't get it, I actually feel really sorry for them because they've never experienced that connection through cross species that can be so powerful, that it can actually change your life. I mean, my friendship and relationship with dogs have really molded me into a very different person than I think I would be if it wasn't for that. Lucky that Janet is like me and has an amazing deep love for dogs, and we share that. It's one of the things, if you're going to have a partner, you want to have a partner who you share a lot of things with. They say opposites attract, but it's not true. Right? To form a deep bond, you really want a person who loves you and who shares a passion. Like Janet is like a mirror of me, except she's a much better person. She's loving and kind and sweet, and she's standing right there. She just walked in the room with little Bosman. I'm going to put Bosman on here. Come on, hang on a second. There's the Bosman. And now Bosman is 18 years old, and how dare anybody say he looks miserable, because he's the most beautiful, loving, sweet dog. He sleeps next to me every single night, and he's going to grind his teeth a little bit, because he's a Bosman. He's 18 years old. Now think about this. You want to know what makes me love Janet even more, if it's even possible? 16 years ago, Janet went into the shelter, the LA City shelter, and rescued this guy. And he was red, and he was dark red, and he was full of piss and vinegar, and he was just a powerhouse. And you know what? He's aged into the most sweetest, loving, sweetest, kindest, most beautiful dog on the planet. And if you haven't had an old dog, if you haven't taken care of an old dog, if you haven't shared the love of an old dog, then you really haven't lived. Because just having this guy in my arms all the time, he just wants to be there with his dad. And we just give him little rubs and tugs and just a lot of love. He's a good boy. He's such a good boy. I'm going to give him back to Janet real quick. Hang on. There you go, Bosman. If you have a partner who doesn't love dogs and doesn't get that deep connection, and you love dogs, it's hard. I hear people all the time. I listen to what they say. Oh, my boyfriend, he doesn't like the sounds the dogs make. Or, my girlfriend has this dog and she insists on sleeping with it. It's gross to me. It ain't going to work out. Just ain't going to work out. That's all there is to it. So listen, this is a different podcast for me. It's something I had to cathartically, I had to get it off my chest. I'm glad I was able to share it with you guys. And think about it. When someone says something to you that hurts you, that makes you feel upset, think in turn the words that you sometimes say to somebody, but especially to someone who can't speak back, right? The anger of the BS that people post on social media, like the vitriol, the anger, no matter what side you're on. If you see something posted on somebody's Facebook page or Instagram page or Twitter page, and you have to go attack them and do that, it's an ugly thing. It doesn't make you a good person, right? They want to post something because they feel good about it. Let them post it. Just let it go. If someone's training their dog wrong, then let them do it. If someone's abusing their dog, that's different, right? But if somebody's trying and doing something, and the reason I criticize positive-only trainers is because they tell a lie to people and pull people into a belief that's very dangerous to dogs. I don't care if you want to train your dog positive-only. I've got no problem with it. I have a problem with the lie because the lie perpetuates more pain, more suffering to dogs. And I've dealt with it in the shelters. I've seen it firsthand. So the key thing here, the takeaway from this podcast is the words you choose. And remember, depending on your belief, the universe was created with a sound, right? A word. If you're a Judeo-Christian, you believe that the word was God. God spoke the word and the universe was created. There's plenty of other religions that believe the universe was created with a sound, right? With an ohm, with a bang. How about that? Science, a big bang. A bang is a sound. If a word, a sound, has the power to create the universe, that word also has the power, that sound also has the power to destroy the universe. Now, it may not destroy the physical universe, but it can destroy the universe within a person. Think of the words, I don't love you, you don't matter, I hate you. Think of those words. Think of how powerful they are. Think of how many times people have said them to a dog, right? A dog doesn't understand them, but a dog understands the meaning, the energy behind it. And that's really the message. Choose kindness, choose power, choose strength. And true strength is in being self-aware, in being self-confident, in not needing to choose those words, not needing to say things that might be hurtful. And choose to make the world a better place for yourself and your pets and for everybody else and their pets. And that's really the message of this podcast. Again, final plug here for Visionary Pet Foods. Thank you to my sponsor. They sponsor this podcast, so there are no commercials, so all commercial free, especially if you're watching on YouTube, brought to you by Visionary Pet Foods. Check out my social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't use much, but it's out there. YouTube, obviously. And check out my website, robertcabral.com, for all the best online dog training lessons available. I promise you're really going to love them. I'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hope it's something different. Hope you take something away from it.